Bible tells us, it has been prophesied concerning you, saying, as he goes on, Nigasha am hazeh, this people draw near, Bapiv with its mouth, B'shaftiv in its lips, Kavodeni, they honor me. Belevam, but their heart, Rachach mimeni, is distant from me. What does that mean? It means the people try to act holy with their mouth. They try to act holy with the way they speak. But the heart of the people is not really towards God. That's why he says, Rachach mimeni. So when he says that, he's saying that the heart of the people is far away from accepting the truth. They want to sound like they're righteous. They want to sound like they know the Torah. They want to sound like they understand the commandments. But the answer is they don't. Because their heart is not willing to literally think through and accept that they're wrong. Tihi yaratem oti, he says, therefore, their fear of me is a mitzvat anashim, is a commandment of men. Malumdam, which is being taught. You see, Isaiah, he had the same problem in his time period, in his generation. And that was the people were being taught false doctrines. The sages who were not really sages were pretending to be sages because they kept utilizing everything they could to try to make themselves look good. But they were liars, and they were deceiving, and they were twisting. And it was so bad to the point that the children were being turned away from their parents who were telling the truth, to the point that the sages were lying and deceiving them and keeping them stuck in a lie to get them caught up in falsehood. He goes on, it says, Vikra el ha'am, and he called to the people, Veimer lehim, and he said to them, Shamua havinu. He says, give ear, listen, Shema, havinu, and understand. Lo nikas el pe, that is not what comes out unto the mouth, yitamei et adam. Now, why would he say it is not what comes out of the mouth? Right? Listen what he says. Lo nignas is not what enters. Nignas, what goes into, right? El hape, into the mouth, right? Yitamei et adam, that contaminates man. Well, if you took this verse literally, you'd have to say that can't be true. Because the Torah says of Vayikra, if you eat a pig or something like that, you eat it, it goes into your mouth, it'll make you unclean. Well, here's the funny part. He wasn't speaking literal. He wasn't opposing the Torah. You understand? He wasn't. So we have to understand deeper as to what his point was as we go to listen. He says, what? Ki'im hayotzim min hape, but rather what goes out of the mouth, hu mitamei adam. This is what contaminates man. So what does he mean that what enters into the mouth does not contaminate man, right? Well, here, remember, they were eating regular food, right? So how could a person who eats regular food become tamei? It defied the very fact that washing of hands was necessary. Therefore, it showed the fact that washing of hands was not necessary because no food item in the Torah requires the washing of hands unless you were a Kohen and you were eating truma. You had to be clean in order to eat truma. But the problem is this topic was not about eating truma. It was about eating regular food. And there is no biblical law that requires you to wash your hands before you eat just regular food. So, therefore, he made his point. It's not what enters a man that contaminates him. Then he goes and said, but rather it's that what comes out of the man, this is what contaminates him. Well, what comes out of a man is words, verbalizations, right? Evil speech. That's why he says, Ve'gesh alav, and they journeyed in him, Talmidah, ve'emru, and they said, Hayadatem ki parushim, shama et hadavar hazeh ve'chashovo, and they were offended at it. Yeah, well, they were offended at it because they didn't like the fact that it was the evil speech and evil tongues and evil speaking and all sources of evil type of topics is what comes out of the mouth is because it goes into the heart. That's why the issue was what these guys were doing were teaching false doctrines, and it was entering into people's hearts and was contaminating the people and was perverting them from following the truth. Remember, they rebuked him because what he did was not wrong, but right. He rebuked them because what they taught that was wrong, he showed them it was evil and they needed to repent and do what's right. And so here he ends the conversation by explaining the fact that what people say out of their mouth is what contaminates people. And since the false doctrines were contaminating the people by making them have fears of men rather than fears of God, it was contaminating people exceedingly so. And that's why it's so important that we know the truth of the Torah for ourselves and that we're not caught up in everything people say. We're not caught up in the words and the ideologies of what people want to teach, because how is that the truth if you don't know why something is or is not the truth? When we look at the scriptures, we have to remember that our time spending in and reading and learning is so essentially important. It's required upon all of us to know for ourselves what is the truth and to not get caught up in all of the emotional hubbub that everybody else is involved in. The Pharisees were very big in emotional involvement. They wanted to distract the people by using emotional innuendos, emotional ideas. They wanted to strive to get the people to believe in the emotional concepts because they refused to listen to the deep truth. They refused to submit themselves to the truth, and therefore they followed the lie instead. Let's listen more. He says in here, V'yan v'yimer, and he answered and he says, Kol matmei asher lo nata avi, everything that is uprooted, that was not planted, asher b'shamayim, in heaven, akor yikar shall surely be uprooted. So anything that's been planted, he says, which was not planted by his father, he says, in heaven, shall surely be uprooted. That goes to show the fact of God will personally make sure that people here on earth understand that his ways are the ways, period. Doesn't matter what the world wants to say or do. Because what does he say? That which was not planted by his father will be uprooted. We need to follow the truth. We need to abide by the truth, because the truth is what sets us free. He says, Hanichu otam midarchim ivrim hema la'arim v'ki yerchik evir et ha'avir nafalu shenehem el habor. So he talks about the fact of if you're following a leader who's blind, then he says, then all of them will fall into a pit, for it's blind leading the blind. And that's the problem. When you have leadership that's blinded by their lies and blinded by the deceptions, everyone falls into that pit. That's why you see the garbage in today. You can read the signs by watching the people and how volatile and exceedingly crazy they're becoming. But that's exactly the point of what manifestations that takes place when evil is starting to present itself more clearly. It becomes a point where it's no matter what, the manifestation pours out and you see it. And it's right there. And you're able to go, wow, that is nuts. And that's exactly what happened to the Parashim. They themselves were so crazy and so insane that no matter what was said that clarified to make it known what the truth was, they denied it. And in the end, the manifestation of that craziness just poured out. So it's very important for us to think about this. It doesn't matter what may happen around us. What matters is that we follow God and we keep his Torah. God will guide us. God will protect us. God will show us the direction we ought to go. What's important is to lead the generation, do what's right, to help them, to guide them, to teach them, and never let go. I'll see you next time.